So how do you tell if a Scrum Master is successful or not? Hi, my name is Chris. I'm a seasoned Scrum Master. Welcome to my channel, Everything Agile, where I try to share my Agile knowledge with practicing and potential Scrum Masters out there so you can become as successful as you can be in your teams and in your organization as a whole. So let's talk about the success criteria of a Scrum Master. Before we do that, let's look at what the Scrum process is actually all about. So there's a product backlog that is prioritized, product backlog that is prioritized by the PO, and within a 2 weeks period, they have to transform a subset of this product backlog into an increment of value, one increment of done. So within those 2 weeks period, they meet in a sprint planning meeting. The team meets in a sprint planning meeting where they decide on the work items or the user stories they have to work on for that time box, which can be a 2-week period. And within that period, there's a process they have to go through to come up with an increment of value. So something must be shipped at the end of the sprint or of that iteration, which is the solution, or at least a piece of the solution. So what is the process here? So within this 2 weeks time box, we have daily stand-ups, which take place on a daily basis, and then we have the sprint demo, where they demonstrate these small shippable increments of value at the end of the sprint. Then of course we have the sprint retrospective, where they can inspect what they did in the previous sprint and adapt for future sprints. So at the end of the sprint, if there is no shippable increment of value to the customer or to the end user, then in my opinion, the Scrum Master is not very successful. So now it begs the question, how do you as a Scrum Master make sure that at the end of the sprint or at the end of the iteration, there's something the team has to show for, which has some value to the end user or the customer? So there are several hats one has to put on within the course of their profession or within the course of the sprint, for example. And these are also known as the Scrum Master stances. So what are these stances? First of all, to succeed as a Scrum Master, you have to have a servant leadership quality. So how do you become a servant leader? If you are a leader, a true leader, that means you should have some followers. Your team members, they should follow you and respect you. And how do you win their respect? You win their respect by winning their trust. And how do you make sure your team actually trusts you so they can have a listening ear when you're making any suggestions, or when you're just trying to have a very meaningful conversation with the team? You win their trust by making sure you're having one-on-one sessions with your team members to resolve conflicts, for example. And if there are any challenges each team member is having, make sure you regularly meet with them just to find out, hey, hope everything is going on well with the team. Is there anything you want to share at a personal level that can help you become as successful as you can be? Are there any resources you need? Do you need training in anything? Is everything moving on well in terms of the process that we are following, in terms of their interactions with the team members, in terms of even the tools they are using? Try to be like that father or mother figure to make sure that they have all what they need. You are creating that environment where they can thrive. So that's how you win their trust. And then you also have to be a very good example to your team members. How are you, and how do you do that? If in your working agreement or in your norms, you've decided that during retrospectives, for example, you're going to have your cameras on, then always make sure you, as a Scrum Master, you have your camera on. If you're also going to make sure, if you've also decided that, hey, everybody has to respect the time of every meeting, so everybody has to be punctual, then make sure you are the first at the meeting to show an example. So those are just examples of ways that you can teach by example so that people can take your word for it. Then you also have to become a very great facilitator. What do you facilitate, by the way? So you facilitate meetings. It can be the standard meetings of Scrum or other ad hoc meetings that you might be called on to facilitate. So how do you facilitate a meeting? There are great books out there on facilitation skills. I would encourage you to go on Amazon and search and get some good books on facilitation. I'll come up with a recommendation list later. But to be a good facilitator, to me, I always think of what is the outcome of each meeting that I'm facilitating. What are we trying to get at the end of that meeting? So making sure that the time box is respected. If it's a 45 meeting, for example, let's take for example a sprint planning meeting. What is the expected outcome of a sprint planning meeting? A backlog, a sprint backlog that is going to be worked on, that the stories meet the definition of ready, and that the team are now able and ready to start the sprint. So if you're going into the 20th minute mark and you're not having any stories that are being populated to match the capacity of the team, then you have to say, hey, technically start asking some powerful questions. Hey, it seems like it looks as though we are struggling to ready some of these stories we are currently looking at, and the sprint planning is going to be over soon, and we're going to start the sprint pretty soon. Are there any stories that are on the priority list that we can pull up so that we should have work that we can actually do at the end of this meeting? So you ask that kind of question, and then the PO is gonna take it up and think about it, discuss with the team, and see what they can do to make sure that they actually have stories that are gonna be ready by the end of that sprint planning meeting. So that's facilitation. Then coaching. How do you coach and why you coach? So there are instances whereby you have to make sure your team has everything they need, and if there are any difficulties at individual levels, you are not providing solutions or making suggestions. You are asking powerful questions so that each team member that is facing a particular problem, they come up with their own solution by themselves. So you'll be asking things like, why do you think that is? What do you think can be done about it? Who do you think we can meet to resolve that impediment, for example? When do you think we should meet that person, or when do you think it can be resolved? Do you believe it's a skill, it's a lack of a skill issue? Do you think you might need training in this area? Or so things like that. That is all about coaching. Just picture the coach of a football team, right? They don't play the matches themselves, but they have that eagle-eye view where they can visualize from a distance and see potential problems, and then they help the team to open up all those areas where things might be hiding, so that they can see and come up with the solution by themselves. Then, as a Scrum Master, to be successful, you also have to become a very good mentor. And mentoring is all about sharing your experience on a particular aspect that team member is needing help on. So you can say, hey, from my experience, this team member or this particular team member that I worked on for this other company or for this other team, he faced the same issue and he did this or that and actually succeeded. So you share that experience, then that person can now decide to take that and maybe try it out to see if it works. Again, remember, we're agile, we always have to be conducting experiments. So that's mentoring, is teaching by sharing your experience so that whoever you're mentoring can actually test it out. If you have had that experience and say, okay, you had a similar situation and this is what you faced and this is how you went about it and you succeeded. Maybe they might want to try it. So that's how you mentor. then you must also be a very good teacher. Now, as a Scrum Master, you always have to know that the environment is changing and that you have to teach whoever needs that knowledge. So, take for example the product owner who is having challenges prioritizing the product backlog. So, as a Scrum Master, you have to teach the product owner on how to prioritize the product backlog. How do you do that? You must be aware of techniques such as Spider, for example, and then you teach the product owner that, hey, this is how you can prioritize your product backlog. Because if our product backlog is not prioritized, we'll not be able to be successful in sprint planning to get that subset of items that we're going to work on. And if it's failing at the level of sprint planning, then it breaks the entire process and we're not going to have any increments of done at the end of the sprint. So that's how being a good teacher can help the team have increments of done at the end of the sprint. Then you must also be a very good impediment remover. Now, mind you, you're also trying to build a team that is self-managed, so you don't have to always jump at the very first appearance of an impediment. You don't jump in there to try to solve the problem yourself. So you have to always try to ask them some questions. Hey, what have you done about it? Have you reached out to this person? Or is there another person you could reach out to help you with this particular impediment? For example, one impediment I can remember in my environment is we had a problem where we're moving towards the end of the sprint and we still had stories that were in the review stage. Those stories had their PRs that were already opened, but somebody needed to review them and merge them. And the reviewer and the mergers belonged to another team in our art. So that was a problem. So how do you remove that kind of impediment? So whoever was working on that story, I always ask, hey, the sprint is coming to an end, and I can see that the PR, this particular story is on the PR column. What are you doing to make sure that the PR is merged? So I'll be like, I've already opened it up, and that team is aware. So I'll be like, so have you reached out to their public Slack channel that, hey, you have an open PR out there, and shared that particular user story ID with them so that they can click on and get to it? And then someone will say, and then that person will say, okay, I'll try to ping that Slack channel again to see if someone can come up and pick it up and actually review it and merge it. So try to ask some of those questions to make sure they are self-managed and they can take care of those issues even when you are not there. Then you also have to become a very good change agent. As a Scrum Master, Agile is fairly new, and the environment is also evolving, and there are lots of changes. And as you might imagine, change is very hard to adopt. People don't like to change a lot. So, and again, I in one of my previous videos, I did mention that even if you're trying to do an organizational change, you are not changing. The organization is made up of individuals, so you're trying to change individuals. So here's a useful tool that you can actually leverage to implement change at an individual level, for example. So let's imagine you're trying to help your organization move from a waterfallish mindset to an agile mindset. What do? You can use this technique known as ADKAR, ADKAR. So what is awareness all about? So now we want to change from waterfall to agile. Is the organization as a whole aware that a wind of change is about to blow? It's a change like that is coming. Are they aware? So as a Scrum Master, it's one of your responsibilities to teach or to make sure the agile mindset actually flows through the organization at the organizational level. That's one of your responsibilities as a Scrum Master. So you have to talk to leadership, maybe during meetings, company-wide meetings like town halls. They can announce that, hey, leadership thinks and feels that there should be a move from a waterfall to an agile way of working. of course, because of the obvious merits, faster release of high quality products to the customer, and more frequently. If the customer is receiving their solutions more frequently, they'll be happy, and happy customer translates to increased revenue for the company. Increased revenue for the company, for the most part, should or hopefully translate to increase in remuneration for its employees, which are the developers, the people you're trying to help to adopt the change. So they have to become aware that, hey, a change like that is coming. Then the desire, just as I mentioned, you have to trigger that desire in every member that change can affect. So how do you do that? Explain to them the benefits and the benefits of that change to them and not to the organization. So look at the things that each employee would value as a benefit. Then see how you can use that change to help them achieve their personal or individual objectives. For the most part, people like increase in salary, right? But that is not the only reward that you can give to an employee. There are other things. But with an implementation of Agile, there'll be higher customer satisfaction because they'll be receiving increments of their products, of their solutions even faster, and it's going to be of higher quality. So again, that translates to higher revenue to the organization as the customer pays their bills, right? So make sure they see the benefits, and make sure you try to get some champions, those who are going to champion that fight, champion that movement. It mustn't be Scrum Masters in the organization, or it mustn't be release train engineers or agile coaches. It can be anyone in the organization, from HR, even from the technical engineering department. Anyone who is interested in agile in any way and is a little bit enthusiastic about it, and maybe has some influence over their peers, and maybe like those charismatic people. You want to get them to be to talk about agile all the time with their teams, formally and informally. So that's how you get champions to trigger a desire amongst the people, or the workers or the employees that you want to adopt that change. Then, after the desire, after every team member has a desire to change, then they're gonna have to have the knowledge, right? How do they get the agile knowledge or the Scrum knowledge, if that's the framework you want to implement? You have to train. So workshops have to be organized and had, and you have to make sure that team members have the knowledge on how it all works. Then you now have to make sure they actually have the ability to do it, and there's no other way to know somebody's able to do something other than them trying it out, implementing it. You have to implement it and use some metrics to monitor performance. How is it going? You can implement with the use of a pilot team, for example. You test out that transformation. You test out picking a project that you can implement Scrum in, and then you look at the results. Are you delivering faster? What are the outcomes? Is it better than the waterfall? So that you can feedback to the organization that, hey, we've implemented this Scrum, and we've worked on this project, and these are the results. So that's how you actually test, and if there are any challenges you faced during that pilot with that pilot team, then you learn from it and you iterate in the next sprint until you become successful, and then you spread the seed across the entire organization by forming multiple other teams, right? Then you don't have to reinforce the change when it's been adopted and it sits. And how do you reinforce the change? You reinforce the change by giving positive feedback. If the teams are now succeeding, if they're not producing increments of value at the end of the sprint, make sure the policies, the reward policies of the organization are such that they favor this agile way of working. Rewards should not go to individuals, but they should go to to teams that are having a higher velocities, for example, teams that are showing the agile mindset more and following the agile principles more. Come up with some rewards based on those policies that can actually reinforce that change so that there's no going back, right? Then you can recognize certain cheerleaders. In my organization, we have what we call cheers for peers, where we try to call out everyone that has done something fabulous in their team that supports an agile mindset. Then we recognize that kind of person in the organizational public Slack channel, for example. And that Slack channel is known as Cheers for Peers. So we recognize that person there. And during things like PI planning, for example, before we kick off, we spin a wheel and pull out the top winners or those mentioned most on that Slack channel, and then we recognize them and everybody applauds them for having adopted or shown an example of this agile mindset. So in this video, we've learned about how to measure the success of a Scrum Master. Again, if you are not producing an increment of value at the end of the sprint, whatever you're doing as a Scrum Master, you just might be failing. Thank you very much for watching, and subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss out on any future videos. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye.